One of the cool things about being back for We Are Weekend is interacting with folks from different classes, from different walks of life, from different generations. And it's just awesome to hear their stories as far as their experiences when they were here on campus. I had a chance to actually go and tour Beaver Stadium. I had a chance to go to WPSU and see how they go about their daily activities to get folks involved in their operations.
Penn State is really a pivotal place for both my wife and I. We met here. I feel like I grew up at Penn State. It just broadened my horizons, both academically and also as a person. And being involved with different activities on campus really molded me into the person that I am today. We have 5 kids. So for us, trying to get away and do something just the 2 of us is really tough. So it's really great that we can have our kids with us and participate. They've had a great time participating in the different tours and activities, enjoying some of the food, and having them here as part of our family has really been able to allow us to enjoy the weekend, not just my wife and I, but our entire family together.
Being a pioneer is really special because it was like getting an award, and the award was just for being 50 years a graduate. But actually tonight I get to put the medals on some of the new pioneers, and it's passing the torch. And that's very special, and We Are Weekend allows me to do that for them, and hopefully they'll get enough out of We Are Weekend that they'll come back and do the same thing in the future years.
We thought it'd be really cool to bring alumni tour guides back to give tours with current students and really get that alumni and also current student perspective to be able to share all of our stories. And for us on the tours, it's been really fun because we're also hearing stories from other Penn State alumni. Even if they weren't tour guides, they have their own sort of understanding of campus and little stories from different areas. So for me, it's been just so great, that synergy of sort of stories and everyone sort of having their love for Penn State and being able to share that. For me, coming back to Penn State is so much about reliving old traditions, but also creating new ones. And I really thought coming back for We Are Weekend would be a great opportunity to start a new tradition at Penn State.
We are!
Hello, fellow Penn Staters. My name is John Nese. I got my degrees from Penn State in the 1980s and returned about 15 years ago. I currently oversee the undergraduate program in the Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science, and I will be your host today for this virtual tour. You'll meet me again in the video that'll play in just a minute, so you'll have to put up with me both live and pre-recorded. The video is about 20 minutes long and very much focuses on the weather communications part of our department, specifically Weather World, our department's 15-minute weather, weekday weather magazine show. It's the current rendition of a long history of weather broadcasting from Penn State that goes back to 1957 and a studio in the basement of Sparks Building. Eventually, the show was done in the studios of WPSU in Wagner Annex next to Shields Building. And then about 20 years ago, the studio was moved to the Walker Building, and that's what you'll see today. I think we'll break the video up into a few smaller bits, and I'll try to answer some of the questions you put in the Q&A during the breaks as well as at the end. Okay, so without further ado, how about we start the video tour of the Meteorology and Atmospheric Science Department.
We are Penn State, Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science, and welcome to our home, the Eric Walker Building, named after the 12th president of Penn State. We're on the west side of the campus at University Park, just down Burroughs Road from the Nittany Lion statue. My name is John Nese. I'm a teaching professor in the department. I'm also associate head for undergraduate programs, and along with a group of talented individuals, many of whom you will meet today, we produce the Emmy Award-winning weekday weather magazine show, Weather World, from a studio embedded within the department. Come along, let's go inside. Let me show you around.
From the Outreach Studios in the Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science at Penn State, this is Weather World.
Now we're on the 6th floor of the Walker Building, just outside the Joel Myers Weather Center. This is the lifeblood of the department. This is where students hang out, do their homework, compute, grab a bite to eat, watch some TV, socialize, and relax.
Hi, I'm Bill Syret. I manage the Joel Myers Weather Center and teach some classes here in the Department of Meteorology. And we're standing by what people see when they walk into the Weather Center, and that is the monitor wall. And it rotates through. There's a default setting where it goes through about 10 minutes of worldwide weather, from radar images to satellite images and webcams of different scenic spots across the world. Gets you a good picture of what's going on globally with the weather. And anybody who forecasts, one of the things we teach is you have to look at the big picture before you zone in on smaller areas. So if you're doing a Pennsylvania forecast, it doesn't hurt to work on the United States as a whole. So anyway, the monitor wall here, great place for students to congregate, get familiar with what's going on. So that is one of the showpieces of the weather station. If we walk further down into it, big study table here. This is where, when I was a Penn Stater way back when, it was a round table. It was Venetian blinds were on the walls. It was a lot different than it is now, but a great place for community. Probably the best place on campus where our students can hang out, discuss homework problems, just get to know each other really well, and watch the weather if it happens to be interesting sometimes. We also have meetings in the Weather Center. Representatives, since we're lucky to have AccuWeather, the National Weather Service, and Penn State in the same small community in central Pennsylvania, we have weather briefings during the school year. And so that's a nice backdrop where we can commiserate with our buddies that love bad weather. The department uses this for social events as well. We've had presidents of the university stop by and dignitaries, and it's a great place to have a party. And if the weather's interesting outside, all the better. Another thing you can see behind me on the wall, this is a kind of a wall of fame. We have weather camps we've been running for kids interested in meteorology before college age. We have one for kids entering grades 8 through 10, another one for grades 11 and 12, where we introduce them to Penn State, what we do here, also college in general. They're looking at schools, and obviously we want students to come here, but just give them an idea of what they can expect. We have a lot of great student groups. The Campus Weather Service, since the 70s, has been forecasting weather for Pennsylvanians, been training students to do forecasts and communicate it well. Over 100 undergrads as a part of that organization. One of the things I do as manager of the Weather Center is take cooperative observations and train students to do the same thing. We cooperate with the National Weather Service. We have over 100 years of daily weather records that I'm proud to be in charge of, and I love being in charge of. And one of the most important things is daily high and low temperatures that are observed. This is the official site for State College. And if you look inside here, it's probably less exciting than you would think, but we have the official high and low temperature thermometers. And at 12 Greenwich Mean Time, which in the summertime is 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning when we're on Eastern Standard Time, some lucky student or myself will come get the high and low of the day, And then after we've done that, measured the relative humidity, looked at the visibility, we will head to the roof of Walker Building and get rainfall and or snowfall and sky condition. So up on the roof of Walker Building is where we get our daily rain or melted snow measurements. This is our official 8-inch in diameter rain gauge. And what we have inside here is a plastic cylinder for the warm season that expands 1 inch of rain to 10 inches depth, so we can measure to the 100th of an inch. Measurements like this obviously are very important, and again, we have over 130 years of mostly daily rainfall data, and so we are one of those special climate observing sites that has more than 100 years of data connected to it. So once we take these observations, we send them via computer to the National Weather Service, and it becomes part of the permanent climate database of the world. So it's great that we have daily weather records that go back over 100 years, but we still like to have finer scale weather information down to the minute. And so we have unofficial observations from the Walker roof. We're on the, I guess we're on the 8th floor of the Walker Building. This is just a Davis Instruments weather station, very dependable. There's a rain gauge on the top of it, anemometer measuring wind speed, wind vane measuring wind direction. And so that becomes part of our observation as well, but not part of the permanent climate database of the country. And you can see a nice view of State College behind us.
Thanks, Bill. I thought we would pause the video there just to see if anybody had any questions. A couple things that Bill said made me want to comment. First of all, Bill is also on the Weather World show that we do. He's one of the contributors. So you can see Bill about once a week on the show. Unofficially, we also have weather observations on campus at a couple other locations. We actually have weather instrumentation on the roof of the press box of Beaver Stadium, and a webcam associated with that instrumentation that's at Jeffrey Field, soccer stadium. And the webcam is positioned so that you can get a view of Beaver Stadium and Mount Nittany. It's quite striking. I can put the URL in the chat for anybody who would like to see that. We also have weather instrumentation at the golf course and at the Arboretum. Bill mentioned weather camps. We also have an adult weather camp that we do every summer. We're not doing it this summer because of COVID, but we will resume again next summer. It'll be in June of 2022, and it's sponsored by the Road Scholar Program. So if you're interested in coming to a Sunday through Friday adult weather camp, we have something for you. And lastly, I wanted to comment, that space that Bill was in to begin with is a really special space on campus. Not every student has a place like that where they can go for their major and sort of be among people who really love what they love. So we're thrilled about that space. The students take great pride in it and take good care of it. I see there's one question. Being in Charleston, the hurricane forecasting system. Well, the best hurricane forecasters in the world are at the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables, Florida. And when you look at their statistics in terms of the accuracy of their forecasts, they're really, really good. We're very fortunate in this country to have a great set of specialized forecasting centers run by your tax dollars, run by the National Weather Service. And that includes the National Hurricane Center in Florida and the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, where you would turn for your tornado watches and your severe thunderstorm watches. So my comment about the hurricane forecasting system is it's pretty doggone good here in the United States. If there are no other questions, how about if we look at the middle third of the video?
Hi, my name is Kyle Imhoff. I'm the Pennsylvania State climatologist. We are housed here within the Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Sciences on the 6th floor in the Weather Center. A lot of our work in the office is dealing with real-time data sets and historical weather data for a number of research projects that we partake in here in the department. One of those projects that's really been exciting over the past couple of years is the Keystone Mesonet project. And The idea behind that project was to collect all of the real-time weather data that is sent from different weather networks across the state, different state agencies, different private industry partners that collect weather data. We pull that in, we display that data in real time so that anybody, it's publicly accessible, it's free, they can access that data and they can utilize that data for whatever it is that they need to use that data for. Another major piece of this is to have that real-time data is to be able to assess high-impact weather events, things like snow squalls and thunderstorms that develop very rapidly and are very small in scale. Having this additional weather data is really important from that perspective, so it helps not only forecasters across the state and private industry, but also the National Weather Service to help assess what's happening in real time from a weather perspective in Pennsylvania. One of the unique aspects of having our climate office right here in our department, that's one of the really major advantages that we have here at Penn State, in addition to having such a large department with so many students that are able to come into the department and utilize some of the products and services that we provide in the climate office. I also have the privilege to teach different courses, not only related to climate studies, which is our climate office related class, but I also teach forecasting, introduction to forecasting, to students every single fall.
Now, the meteorology department at Penn State has been around since the middle of the 1930s. We've granted more than 4,000 degrees. More than 3,000 of those are Bachelor of Science, more than 1,000 Masters and PhD. At any given time, there are about 200 meteorology majors walking around Penn State, and we graduate of order 40 to 50 students per year. There are also, at any given time, 50 to 60 graduate students working on their master's and PhD. Meteorology is a rigorous science. At the undergraduate level, students take 4 calculus classes, 2 calculus-based physics classes, and at least 1 chemistry, 1 statistics, and 1 computer programming class, though many students will take additional classes in those disciplines. Students in our department go on to work in a variety of disciplines. About 40% of our students end up working in the private sector, another 10 to 15% in television. 25 to 30% of our students immediately go on to get a master's or PhD, and the rest work in government, teaching, or go into the military.
Hi, I'm Marissa Ferger, and I'm a member of the Weather Communications Group here at Penn State. And I have a couple of different responsibilities within the department, one of which is teaching some of the weather communications classes, and the other is as a producer and forecaster for our daily TV show Weather World that we produce here in Walker Building. One of the biggest parts of my job, both for Weather World and then partially in the classroom, is spending a lot of time here with this computer. We do a lot of our own editing here in the department for our features, and we even do this in a little bit in the Meteo 482, which is Weather Communications 2. And we use an editing software called Adobe Premiere Pro, and Premiere Pro is an editing software that is industry standard. So not only are we using it here in the department, but when our students are learning how to use it and they go and get jobs at local television stations, they actually come in with experience knowing this software package. So it's really great, and they get a lot out of it. So it looks scary. There's lots of windows. Every window has a meaning, but essentially this is our timeline of our show here. At the bottom, we have 14 minutes to fill for Weather World every afternoon. We can't go 14 minutes and 1 second. We can't go 13:58. It is 14:00, and that's one of the most important things in television, is actually nailing the time. And what we do for Weather World, which is a little different from other productions because we don't have as many people behind the scenes, is we have to put together our show a little bit in advance. Sometimes we have hosts that record and open and a close for us. This is an example of a student who did this prior to leaving for the spring semester. And so they send us this in advance, and we bring it in here into our timeline. And then also on this particular show, we had a break. Rob Lydick puts together these county spotlight breaks based on information that state climatologist Kyle Imhoff gives him, and really fun information with the highest temperature, lowest temperature, most precipitation, and most snowfall in a 24-hour period. And so we show these breaks once a week, and each week it's a different county. And then on this date, we had a Water Watch segment. And one thing, like I said, we pre-produce some of these segments, and Rob actually recorded this earlier in the day. We do some of the segments about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that way we have it, it's ready to go, it's part of our timeline. And we know how much time he spent doing this, and we put it on a spreadsheet, and that's how we know how much time the forecaster has. So then we come in and we set everything in our timeline, and then we're good to go. We send this downstairs to the control room, and we're ready to do a show. Now, every single day on Weather World is different. On Mondays, we have certain segments. On Thursdays, we have certain segments. And so we mix it up every single day. But the one thing you do get on Weather World every day is a Pennsylvania forecast that's about 4 minutes long. And it covers all corners of Pennsylvania and everything in between. And that's how we produce the show here.
It may not be apparent from this virtual tour. We made this video after the students had left for the spring semester, but Weather World really is a wonderful collaboration between faculty, staff, and students. We even have graduate students on the show. So they're looking for a little outlet as they're working on their master's or their PhD, but they really want to stay in touch with day-to-day weather. We love those kinds of collaborations. I also wanted to mention that Marissa talked about weather communications classes. Literally within the department, we offer 3 classes that are called Weather Communications 1, 2, and 3. So it's not as if we ship students over to the College of Communication and have them train the students. Yes, students are free to take College of Comm classes, but we take it upon ourselves to offer 3 semesters worth of courses. And this isn't just television, but these weather communications classes include topics such as forensic meteorology, science writing, branding yourself, making your own website, for example. How do you make a so-called reel that you might show to potential employers? So it's not just about television, but it's about anything that falls under the envelope of weather communications. I see there aren't any questions at this time, so how about we now go inside the studio to finish the virtual tour.
We're now on the 5th floor directly beneath the Weather Center. This is where many of the faculty offices are. We have about 25 tenure-track faculty members in the department, all who teach and do research. We also have between 10 and 15 fixed-term faculty members who teach and do a variety of other tasks. Our faculty do research in a broad range of topics, anywhere from mesoscale meteorology, tornadoes, thunderstorms, hailstorms, to climate-related research, cloud physics, environmental meteorology, radiation satellites, radar systems, weather risk management, biometeorology. You name it, we have an internationally renowned expert doing research in those fields. And students get to benefit both by having these folks as instructors as well as undergraduate research projects. As we work our way down the 5th floor hallway here, I see the door to the studio is open and the light is on. Why don't we go inside?
Hi, I'm Rob Lydick. I work for the Weather Communications Group here in the Penn State Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science. I'm also the executive producer of Weather World, our show that airs throughout the state of Pennsylvania every weekday, and we talk about weather, of course, on that show, and we get students and faculty involved. Now, my background was I actually used to work in local TV. I came here for my undergraduate in meteorology, went in local TV and worked in Bangor, Maine for about 2 years, and Fort Wayne, Indiana for 5, before coming back here to help train the next generation of broadcasters. So some of the technology that we use here in the control room in the Walker Building is the exact same technology I used at my local stations. So Taking a look at our Max graphics system, this is one unique tool that the students have access to every day here in the department. We have things that's constantly ingesting data, so you've got satellite data, temperature data, forecast models, radar, you name it. Here in the control room, we also use some state-of-the-art technology. We have a new tech TriCaster that the students actually will push these buttons and direct our show. So we don't have any professional staff, if you will, that direct the show every day. We actually have students and faculty that use these buttons. Even though we're meteorologists by trade, we are well-rounded and well-trained individuals. So this new tech TriCaster can do everything from a switch between shots and video sources to we actually have a virtual set. You'll see the studio in just a minute, but this virtual set, is basically just a chair. We can put whatever we want in the background. Okay, here we are inside the Outreach Studios, not typically the perspective that you would see if you were watching Weather World or really any student production, because everything in this space is, for the most part, what we use in the business called chroma key technology. So that's taking anything that the computer sees as green and replacing it with images, like our virtual sets or our weather graphics. And so this is why you won't see us wearing green in this space, because it would just take the virtual set or the graphic and place it right over top of us. This is the same kind of chroma key technology that's been used for decades in local TV. So we do sit behind a desk. We've got some chairs here for our hosts that they'll sit here, and they can look at the different cameras that we have that are controlled robotically from within the control room. Timers up here also can serve as a prompter, program monitor down here. So this is kind of more of the host area that you're looking at right now. Over in this space, this is where I like to say the magic happens. This is where many people get their start in TV, myself included. So this is our wall, the weather wall, if you will, where we are giving the forecast every day using the graphics that I just showed you in the control room. So how the broadcaster sees what they're looking at is we've got a prompter screen mounted here and a mirror. So the camera is actually right behind that mirror. It's reflected right here, and so we're looking directly at the camera, but we can see ourselves on top of the image that the computer has placed on the chroma key. So we're looking straight ahead. We can see where we're positioned. We also can turn off to our sides and see these two monitors positioned here to get that perspective of exactly where we're standing, where we're pointing to. So that's how I can kind of gauge, okay, here's where Williamsport is, despite the fact that this is just a green wall. But as everything is down to the second, we're constantly referring to that back monitor. We do have some students that will help give us some time cues, let us know when we're down to the last few seconds, but we're constantly watching that for how much time we have left in our segment. We'll do a full weather forecast here, some pre-tape segments, then come back and do a recap segment of the forecast, and then toss it right back over to the host to wrap up the show. So we try to get the students as involved as we can to give them that real-world experience and really prepare them for careers in broadcasting. Having said that, not every student that helps or that's on Weather World goes into broadcasting. We've had several students who are grad students, even undergrad students, who have said the communication skills that they develop by doing shows like Weather World have been advantageous for them when it comes to defending their thesis or getting ready for grad school, because everybody can benefit from better communication skills. So Weather World, while we are geared towards helping those prepare for careers in broadcasting, it is wide-reaching, and everybody can benefit from some of the skills and experiences that Weather World offers.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this tour of the Penn State Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science, seeing all of our workspaces and meeting some of the folks who put together our award-winning show, Weather World. You can catch Weather World each weekday evening on WPSU TV or the Pennsylvania Cable Network if you're in Pennsylvania, or catch us anytime on the website, weatherworld.psu.edu. Signing off from the University Park campus and the Department of Meteorology and Atmospheric Science, I'm John Nese.
This is Weather World.
I'd like to add a shout out to WPSU TV here in central Pennsylvania, located, the studios are on the other side of campus from the Walker Building out in Innovation Park. They provide a tremendous amount of technical expertise, helping us with the hardware that goes into producing the show. Yes, we try to do as much of it as we can ourselves, but certainly they've been instrumental in helping us when we really get in a tight spot with anything technical related. And also thank you to the Pennsylvania Cable Network for allowing Weather World to be seen statewide in Pennsylvania. A couple questions have come in. How is AccuWeather connected to Penn State Weather World? So there's a couple connections. First of all, for those of you who don't know, AccuWeather is I believe the world's largest, at least the largest private weather forecasting firm in the United States and probably in the world. Headquartered in State College, founded by Penn State alum Joel Myers back in the early 1960s. For a time, some AccuWeather meteorologists did appear on Weather World back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Folks such as Joe Sobel and Elliot Abrams and even Joel Myers for a time. That's not the case anymore. AccuWeather does hire many Penn State meteorology graduates. AccuWeather participates in our weekly weather briefings, which are broadcast via YouTube. We change the day up depending on the semester. AccuWeather's been very generous in giving tours of their facility for folks who are interested in pursuing meteorology at Penn State. So they've been a great partner in a lot of different ways. Who are some famous meteorologists with a Penn State degree? Well, at the Weather Channel, you probably know Jen Carfagno, Mike Seidel are probably two of the most well-known. Maria LaRosa used to be at the Weather Channel. You can now catch her on TV in New York City. You can also catch Erica Grow on television in New York City, Glenn Hurricane Schwartz on television in Philadelphia, probably a very well-known name for those of you in that part of the state. Just about any television station, certainly in Pennsylvania, there's usually a Penn Stater. Joe Murgo on television in Altoona, Brett Thackeray, Eric Finkenbinder, Dan Tomaso, Addis Uklo on television in Harrisburg. Many big cities from Miami to Charlotte to St. Louis to Oklahoma City to Chicago to Detroit to Boston, you're going to find, chances are, a Penn Stater on television. When did weather communications get added to the meteorology curriculum? It was formally added. I wasn't here at the time. I believe it was the late 1990s when a weather communication option was added to the major, and it's still going strong. The weather instruments, somebody asked this question on Tuesday, and I wasn't sure on Tuesday. I did this program on Tuesday as well, and it's being asked again. I should have asked Bill Siret since Tuesday, but I haven't. My guess is they're calibrated quite frequently, at least yearly and perhaps monthly. The wildest weather in State College, that question came up on Tuesday as well. I am still drawn to the March 1993 storm of the century, which occurred over spring break, right at the end of spring break in 1993. Brought about 30 inches of snow to State College, closed down the campus. Students couldn't get back in. I was actually working at the Beaver campus at the time. I remember it vividly. So I don't know if you consider that wild. I mean, State College has experienced some heavy rain from a number of tropical storms. There was Ivan, I think that was in 2004, Sandy in 2012, a little bit of wind mixed in there. But generally speaking, I would say it was snowstorms that brought the wildest weather to State College. Do we ramp up with more shows when there is severe weather in Pennsylvania? Not really. What we do is we change the format of the show. In other words, we have the flexibility to use those 14 minutes however we want. As Marissa said, we have a set format for normal days. The last time we did a non-normal show was for the big snowstorm in mid-December of 2020, when we blew out the regular format and devoted the entire 14 minutes to that winter weather show. What do I think of the algorithm weather services that predict weather up to a year in advance, like Weather Trends 360 in Bethlehem? The best science that we have right now makes it pretty clear that specific detailed weather forecasts, where you're trying to forecast, will it rain or won't it rain? What will the high temperature be? That kind of specificity, once you get beyond, and it varies depending on location, but generally speaking, somewhere around 9, 10, 11, 12 days out into the future. Once you get beyond that threshold, weather forecasts on average are no better than if you just used climatology, which means the average. So you can go look up the average likelihood of rain on any day of the year. You can look up the average high, and you can look up the average low. And that doesn't require any science. It just requires looking at past weather data. What I'm saying is, if you used that as a forecast, instead of actually trying to make a scientific forecast, you would do better using climatology beyond anywhere from 9 to 13 days out, depending on where you are and what time of the year it is. And so what that means is that any weather forecast where they're trying to give you specifics of the weather beyond that threshold is no better than using average weather. That's what it means. There is no scientific evidence that you can predict the details of the weather beyond that threshold. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Can I explain how hail is formed? Sure. So hail is a thunderstorm phenomenon. Most hailstones actually have as their embryo it could even be some sort of solid particle. It could even be a bug onto which water freezes, and then that element is held aloft inside the belly of a thunderstorm, because inside thunderstorms there's almost always a part of the storm where the air is going up. And so if that particle gets in that part of the thunderstorm, it can be held aloft for quite a long time. And if you can hold that particle aloft in an area where you have water, but temperatures are below freezing, you can build a piece of ice. And in fact, we have one faculty member who routinely during the summer chases thunderstorms out in the central plains of the United States. And his main goal is to deploy some instrumentation beneath those thunderstorms that allows us to study the characteristics of hailstones. So that is an active area of research. Yeah, we've come a long way since 1966. We still offer that introductory meteorology course, though, for students who just want to get 3 credits of natural science. We still have that. In fact, we now have 3 or 4 general education classes for students who are non-meteorology majors but want to take some meteorology. And in fact, I mean, I'm biased, of course, but I think, and don't throw anything at me for this, I think every student should take a general education class in meteorology. I think it's a wonderful science that has applications well beyond graduation. Viewing from the UK, fabulous. Hello, Christine. Thank you for joining us. And it's fantastic that your son is currently at the National Hurricane Center in South Florida. Those are some jobs that are highly in demand. And in fact, I teach a forecasting class every spring semester, and I had as my guest in April one of the forecasters from the National Hurricane Center, who is a Penn Stater. So we often reach out to alums to join us in class and share their experience with us. Weather World is shown at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time on WPSU Channel 3 in central Pennsylvania. It is then repeated at 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time on that same channel, WPSU. So they fill the half hour with two 15-minute weather worlds. We're also on the Pennsylvania cable network at 5:45. That would be PCN. I appreciate the sentiment that weather forecasting has become more accurate and more precise. It has been a slow process, though. It's more the turtle than the hare in terms of improvements. It's largely built on improvements in computer modeling. We actually, and I'm sure if you follow a particular weather forecaster, you've heard he or she mention that we depend heavily on computer models. These are simulations, much like we simulate just about anything these days, right? Computer games are simulating golf courses. You can pretty much play any golf course in the United States in a virtual fashion. We have real equations that govern the way the atmosphere works, and you plug them into the computer. You write a couple million lines of code, and out pops a weather forecast, which is generally useful, but in the hands of a experienced meteorologist, it's even more useful. You know, the nuances of each model. And so it's largely built on the backs of improvements in computer modeling, improvements in observations. Observational systems have become much more complex in recent years, and many of the observations we get come from satellites. In fact, most of the data that goes into these computer models at the beginning of the forecast comes from satellites. And most of those satellites are courtesy of the United States government. Thank you, the American taxpayer, for contributing a couple dollars per year to the budget of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and related organizations that use American tax dollars to launch these weather satellites, to pay for the weather radars, which make the weather forecasts better. So in large part, I think it's fair to say that any improvements in weather forecasting are largely due to the generosity of the American taxpayer, who subsidizes a few dollars per year the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So literally, thank you. But thank you, Mike, for noticing that weather forecasts are getting better, because not everybody recognizes that. But I will say, I'll tell you, if you own a business that is weather sensitive, and I know this is a selfish plug for my field, but if you own a business that is weather sensitive, I think in almost all cases, if you were to employ a meteorologist to get really specific forecasts, my bet is you could improve your profits. But you need somebody you trust who understands your needs. You can't get by with anything generic that you maybe get off of an app. You need something very specific to your business. But we have found that many private companies are recognizing that fact. And that's why you will find meteorologists now being employed by companies, and I'll mention one here. Mars Candy Bars employs a few meteorologists, some of them Penn Staters, because to some degree, cocoa is sensitive to weather. Places that grow cocoa are sensitive to weather. And so it's been a real joy for me over the last 15 years to begin to see the diversity of private sector companies that are now hiring meteorologists. I know we're down to about 3 minutes here. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Penn State Alumni Association for letting me do this, and thank WPSU and the Pennsylvania Cable Network again for showing Weather World. which has been a wonderful opportunity for our students to get real world experience both in front of and behind the camera. I could go on and on about the weather and our department, but I really want to thank you, alums, for participating in this program. And please let me make an offer. My email address, I will put it in the chat. If you're ever at the University Park campus and things are back to normal and you want to see Weather World live, shoot me an email and we will do everything we can to get you into the Walker Building and into the studio to watch the show live. We certainly have done that in the past, pre-pandemic, and my expectation is we will be back there sooner rather than later. I will certainly hang on until 3:45 when the program ends, but again, thanks to everybody for joining. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Christine. Best wishes in the UK.